the participants are not supposed to work around flags with vulnerabilities without understanding them. So these will destroy the fun of the game, so it's forbidden. The same applies to denial of service attacks that just drop down the availability of other teams without really making the attackers understand why or how they shut down the other system. Just skip a little bit because we're back in time. Then, just sorry. Yeah, the basic thing about all capture the flag games are the challenges. Each challenge is typically consisted of a single service that is connected to the network so that the other teams can access it. There are some very simple rules about these services that would have to be deployed or at least ensured while writing these services, just to make sure that the fun remains in the game. The first is that under any condition you have to avoid a root exploit on the system. Otherwise, if somebody hacks this service and gets root shell, he can delete the system, he can read all the information from all services and not only from the one he compromised. So, well, this is just to be avoided. Otherwise, he would have an unfair advantage. Then the reason not to take out-of-the-box services is, of course, that there's no time to develop zero-day exploits in the capture the flag games. And that we don't want to enforce participants looking for vulnerabilities using Googles or just like experienced players knowing the vulnerabilities from databases like Bugtrack. Instead, players should look for the vulnerabilities on their own. We also just can't modify these services because otherwise people could just download the original source, do a diff, and then they got all the vulnerabilities. So, as I already said, we have to stick up with writing custom services, typically using standard protocols because these are known to the players and the players can develop very fast a good feeling for what a service does and where the vulnerabilities are. The programming languages in a capture the flag should be adopted to the typical use of systems that can be found somewhere. Of course, PHP, Perl, C, Bash, and so on, they are encountered in nearly every capture the flag. In some occasions, there's Java and Python, quite unusual and never seen, or BASIC and Pascal languages. This doesn't mean that they will never occur in a CTF, just they are quite uncommon, and if the hoster of a CTF game wants to add a little spice, they can just use unusual programming languages. To the difficulty of the task, it's so that the capture the flag games are not designed for professional hackers, as I already said in the beginning, but for students. So there have to be vulnerabilities that are so damn stupid that they will never occur in a normal course, in a normal source. This is also a little bit important for the bootstrapping of the game. Otherwise, people just analyze the code and there's nothing happening in the first 3 hours. And so we want to change that because after all, capture the flag games are about fun. And another reason to avoid just services that only contain very difficult services is that the time of the hosters and the time of the players is precious, of course. We want to avoid that they start analyzing code and there's no result until the end of the capture the flag. This, again, is something that has to be avoided. Unfortunately, in the experience, it's that there aren't just two easy tasks. In nearly every capture the flags, there are some programming lines like system quotation mark ls star or some ls system calls in C files or in Perl scripts that can be very trivially used for shell injection, but there are always some teams that never fix them until the end of the game. So I think maybe that some teams should better not only do the capture the flag game itself, but only analyze what happened to their image during the game, learn from it for the next time. So this could improve something. I think I could show some examples of capture the flag services, or at least part of them. Here's a part of a guest book that has been used in the ICTF2 from the UCSB University, where we see a typical CTF style programming where we have a Perl script, a Perl CGI that copies everything to global namespace and then just uses a shell command. Again, this is something where some teams are unable to fix it, but most teams get that they just have to replace the first lines with just copying the interesting parameters and then just filter out all evil shell escape characters. Another vulnerability that is sometimes used in PHP is just taking hidden content from the user and then executing code that is typically not executed during the normal course of the scoring system. This part is these lines are taken from the ICTF 05 that has just been happened in the beginning of December, where there was just a file that has never been used by the scoreboard, and it was in the same directory as all the other files that were patched and checked by the players. But since it wasn't used by the scoreboard, most players didn't took a look at it, and well, it contained something that's just kind of a trivial backdoor where you only have to enter the server's name in a cookie and it lists all the flag. Another damn stupid style of programming, well, we already got that. Yeah, it's the same. It's just not system, but popen with basically the same. Sometimes it's quite nice to have these lines where you enter just one line of shellcode, and it's quite difficult to replace with the original programming language. In this case, it would be easy, but if it's not just a cat but a grab or whatever. Yeah, just some more. Oh, yeah. And then there's, of course, the more advanced vulnerabilities where we have these chat server where you could have a channel, and what people didn't recognize was that the channel that you joined where the flag was posted was not checked as a string but as a regular expression, so people could just enter a lot of channels by regular expression and then get all the broadcast messages. This was so difficult to find that no team up to the end fixed it. A similar, little bit different vulnerability was here, where you got a SQL injection, and in the first place you just think, oh, wow, there's password. I got it from the CGI script. It's sanitized and then used in the query. And here just the last character is the single quote. And so if people don't just check carefully, they miss it. And so you can still do SQL injection, and because with a backtick you can here escape the password and then just enter something like OR1, and so it's sometimes quite viciously hidden. And sometimes it's just a little bit more stupid, like where you have a check, and even in the source code you have an encrypted flag and a plain flag, and if the length that you return is negative, you just get the plain flag, and otherwise you get the encrypted flag. These are things where you have to pay attention that if you enter these things in your code, you might end up with some teams exploiting them very fast and others just don't find it. Some of the most difficult challenges that can be deployed in these capture the flag games are those where you have remote execution by design, like in the 22C3 capture the flag that has happened this morning, where you just could send shellcode to another team server that has to be executed because it's part of the service, and then you just get the return code. This is how it was programmed, and so the task is not how to prevent other teams to execute shellcode, because then the service is down, but you have to sanitize the code. Otherwise, you just shut down the service and you don't receive any defense points. And I think when the service was designed, there was actually no real clue how to prevent teams exploiting this service. And I even think that it's kind of impossible to prevent all possible exploitations of this, but
well, actually, there was one team really fixed it. They put it in this change root stuff.
yeah, but
This was quite nice in my opinion. So
yeah, it was quite nice, and well, depends on it.
yeah,
It worked for the capture the flag, but it 100% fixing is typically not possible. So yeah, the worst thing to happen is something like you have a service without source code that provides a service on the SSL that is encrypted in SSL, so you can't sniff the data, you can't read the source code, you have to reverse engineer the service. I don't know if this can be done in real time during a capture the flag game, but well, offline it can be done, of course. Additional possibilities to have the players more fun in the game is just assigning weak passwords, some backdoors in the image. It's surprising how little attention is paid to weak passwords. I think yesterday in the competition there were like 2 or 3 services having username equals passwords, and some teams took 3 hours to find that out. So yeah, just some more final small notes on capture the